Tonight we got Donny Cho, and he's a podcaster. Hey, Donny, what's going on? And
Not much.
tonight, Phil,
Yeah.
Zandine, and myself are going to be asking him all kinds of questions. And I think his podcast basically handles things of the paranormal. Am I correct about that, Donny?
M- a good chunk of it does. Not all of it, but a good
A
chunk of
good
it.
chunk,
Yeah.
a good
Yeah.
chunk. Okay, and
Because
you're
yeah.
probably like us. We talk
Yeah.
about pop culture, paranormal,
Exactly.
the incel phenomenon, you name it. We talk about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a topic I never cover,
true
but yeah.
crime. Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks, Donnie. Thanks, Donnie.
Yeah. Hey.
yeah. So, Donnie, so how did you start this podcasting?
Well, I was actually co-hosting. I was like the perpetual co-host, but never had my own show. I was co-hosting a few friends of mine. You've met Danielle. I was co-hosting for her, and a few of my friends who had paranormal podcasts. For a couple of years, I was kind of like the research guy who always had to come in all serious and talk deep intellectual topics. I would have to read and prep before every show. And I guess people who listened to us kind of liked what I had to offer, and people, my friends behind the scenes, would suggest, "Hey, why don't you start your own show?" So I did, decided to, and it was completely not what people expected. My show just became pure goofiness with a lot of engagement into paranormal topics. But one of the things I went for was trying to apply like a lot of comedy into the paranormal field because I feel like not enough people do that. It's it's something that not a lot of people try. So that's kind of what I geared my show towards. Who always had to,
There's two paranormal groups that I know of that seems like they put in comedy with their paranormal investigating.
Mhm.
That was the Ghost Brothers. They had a
Yeah.
lot of good comedy, and then Ghost Adventures. They have a lot of goofy comedy in that.
Can
Have
I
you
tell
seen
you
the ghost?
guys? Can I tell you guys about a little known show that, in my opinion, is probably the most hilarious ghost investigation show? It
What's
only
that?
lasted one season. It was canceled after one season, but because of that, the good news is all episodes are available for free on YouTube. They just released it. It's called Ghosts in the Hood. Who
I
always had
haven't watched that one.
Ghost
it's
what?
so
You
Ghosts
gotta,
Ghost
in
in
the Hood.
Donnie.
What's up?
You gotta see my show, The Paranormal Soul Brother. It's James Brown Ghost Busting.
Oh yeah, it's you gotta check out Ghosts in the Hood, man. It's so funny, and they're not parod. It's not like a parody. They're an actual investigation group who always
What?
had one of the members is a stand-up comedian, and he gets
I-
the brunt of the attacks. Hilarity ensues. Who
I'm
always had
gonna
to
look
check it
that one
out.
up. I
Yeah.
watched. I've seen. There's one called Ghost Show, but it is a parody. It's that I've watched. That's pretty funny. I'll
That
check
was
out Ghost in the Hood.
who always had.
I watch Wellington Paranormal, uh, which is not a documentary, but it's hilarious. It's a comedy show.
Yeah, I know
But
that show.
yeah, yeah, they're good. And sometimes I watch that TV show called Ghosts, and it's all these different ghosts from
I
different
love that show.
eras.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's a
Yep.
good show. That's a good show.
Who always had
Do you guys handle a lot of pop culture?
on my show. Yeah, we do pop culture as well. One of the things that I try to use my show for is kind of like a safe haven for a lot of my friends who are involved in these topics and on these shows. Because for most of my friends, and Paul, you've met a bunch of them, right? Like Tex and Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Danielle, of course, the Blondes and the Booze. Like these people you're very familiar with. Um, Midwest Night Watchers, I'm sure you're familiar. You remember them. We were all on the same shows together. For them on their shows and their subject matter, the way they engage their audience, everything's very serious. Everything's just very who always had to the letter, just paranormal topics, their thoughts and views and experiences. And for me, I created my show partially as kind of like a safe haven for these people to come to, where we can talk about anything besides the paranormal, like my friend Tex, who's a Bigfoot researcher. I bring him on, we talk about fishing because I know he likes fishing. Um, I had Danielle Diva on my show last time, and all I did was,
Phil knows her.
yep, yeah, I was just watching the episode you guys did with her actually before I came on here, and all we did was talk about K-pop. Who always had to, who
This
always
is
had kind of like just
you missed out. You could have been talking about K-pop.
yeah. I was giving her an education on K-pop.
Oh, okay,
It was one of my favorite episodes. We talked no paranormal at all. But and because we have opportunities to go on other shows and talk those topics. And when I do talk about the paranormal, every time I bring it up on my show, yeah, I try to incorporate an element of comedy to it because, well, I think it's I think it's more important than people realize. You need to be able to laugh at these things because I feel like a lot of times when people take these topics too seriously, they sometimes wind up losing themselves in it. I feel like by incorporating a healthy dose of comedy, done with the right attitude and the right level of respect, I think it could be good for people who always had.
Hey, Donnie, who was that K-pop guy that died at an early age? It was just recent.
Who always had. Oh, I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
The One Direction guy.
Oh, and then there's One Direction, yeah.
Oh, is that different than
Oh
K-pop?
no, that wasn't K-pop. Yeah, that was just regular pop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call that vanilla pop.
I don't know the difference.
It now.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
What's
the guy from One Direction, yeah. Who always had no idea what happened to him. He just walked into his hotel room one day, didn't walk out. Who always had.
Oh, they said that he had his hat, and when he has his hat, that means he's trying to sneak out of his hotel room because they were trying to lock him up in the hotel room. And then he got up on the balcony, and he thought he can jump down to the second balcony, but he missed it and fell to his death. Yeah, but the people that they're busting are the ones who supplied him with some drugs.
Oh, I see. I heard he didn't even fall from that far of a height. I heard it was only like the third floor.
Yeah.
That sounds conducive with him like trying to jump down to the second floor, missing. Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
If you land on your head, kill you. Yeah. You were talking about sorry, Zandine. You were talking about the comedy aspect of the paranormal or the paranormal investigations and how to do it with respect. I was wondering if you could throw an example out there because I think that's got to be challenging sometimes to be able to find comedy in some of this stuff without hurting someone's feelings.
Okay, let me give you a good example of the first time I ever went on an investigation. It was a place called Burnbrae Manor. It was like in the it was in upstate New York. I was with this big group, and I'm sure you guys have had the experience of like paranormal investigations, going around the haunted house, and EVPs and those EM meters or whatever.
Those two guys had.
Yeah, and so we split up into several groups. I with this one group, we go into this one, supposedly really haunted room. It was one of those old-timey houses built in like the 1700s, generations of families and peoples. It's been used for multiple reasons. And all of these people, we have these EM meters. We're sitting around. We're trying to ask questions and get those little beeps from the electromagnetic field detectors. It's supposed to basically just give binary responses. Like you ask yes, no questions and it beeps accordingly. But we were getting nothing. Maybe like an errant beep here and there, but generally it was just no activity. So we're kind of sitting there in the dark, just kind of sitting around, feeling all goofy about ourselves. I'm looking at all the pictures of the old family of, and these are people from the 1920s. I'm noticing their clothes, right? These women in the 1920s, 1910s, these people wear like three-piece suits to go out to like buy groceries, who always had from that era. I'm looking at all the guys and the girls. It's the middle of July that are in our group. All the girls are wearing like tank tops and jean shorts and sandals, right? So I just kind of turned. I mean, I don't turn to the ghost, but I just kind of say out loud when it was my turn to ask a question. I was like, I've got a question for the ghosts. Looking at all of us and all the clothes we're wearing now, do you think our clothes are completely ridiculous? Next thing you know, the EM meters just start busting out. Like everything's just beeping like crazy, like beep, 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 beep everywhere. That was the one question that got the ghost response. Everyone in the room started cracking up laughing. I think I got the ghost to laugh, who
But
always had. It was a question on, on the ghost level, because I was thinking if I were a ghost from like of a person from the 1910s or the 1920s, and I was looking around at all these modern people in the middle of July, everyone's wearing shorts, all the girls are wearing like spaghetti straps and sandals. I'm from the 1910s. I'm going to be looking at these people in the 2020s and thinking they're dressed all ridiculous. And I was right, because the EM meters kept going off like crazy after that. It was one of those weirdest things. But I believe at that moment, I managed to make the ghost laugh, which got everyone else to laugh. Who always had.
I think good story. You're absolutely right. There was no casual back then.
There was no casual. Look at the people going to the grocery store back then. Like pictures of people in the 1920s at the grocery store. Man, they're all wearing 3-piece suits, all the guys.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Zandine, I'm sorry. I cut you off a second ago. What were you saying, brother?
Oh, no, that was a good question. And that was even a better answer. I was going to, before I was just talking about something miscellaneous when he was talking about K-pop. One of my usernames used to be Hung Gil Dong. I don't know if it is, but it sounds
very Korean.
Yeah, folk. But people are like, who is that? But I used to watch this series on him, and it was like a really funny version of him. It's like he was like Robin Hood, but they even had, it was set in the Josiah period, but it had like hip hop in it. It was a trip, man.
Korean people, they love that stuff over there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I was in South Korea. I was at Seoul, Korea, Yongsan Barracks. And I used to party down in Itaewon.
I used to live there. I lived there for a number of years in Itaewon.
Oh, Itaewon, really?
Yeah.
Whoa, okay. I used to hang out at the Sportsman's Club.
Real quick for the people listening, Itaewon is kind of like in Seoul, South Korea. It's kind of like, you know how New York City's got a Chinatown, where you got this little section of New York City where it's all like Chinese stuff. Itaewon is kind of like the America town in Seoul, South Korea, where you see like all American people and, American restaurants. And if you just want like a regular pizza living in Seoul, you go to Itaewon. But sorry, Paul. Yeah, go ahead. I just had to lay out that background info.
Korea, I had so much fun at. I mean, it was just, I know a few words, Yoboseo, Annyeonghaseyo. I forget some of the other ones, but yeah, I just had a good time. I was party all the time. Sportsman's Club and some other clubs. In fact, I actually became a dance instructor at one of the clubs. And then I was featured on the movie Incheon as a regular. And I made two other Korean movies in which I danced in the Korean movies. Oh, and another movie where I played a MP military policeman and I was holding back the jury.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I was in some Korean movies over there.
Itaewon's great. Seoul is great. It's like if you're like an alcoholic, that place is Disneyland. That's what I always say.
Oh,
it's true, Paul. It's true.
Remember Itaewon? You also too. You had all that food, and people were selling food and drinks and sake and all that other stuff.
24/7. Just every other building is just a bar. It's just all night.
Bulgogi and kimchi. Oh man, I mean, I used to eat so freaking good out there.
So is that what K-pop stands for? Korean pop?
Yep, Korean pop music.
All right, I just put 2 and 2 together with that one. Sorry, I'm so out of it with this.
Hey, remember that one Korean song? What was it?
Gangnam Style.
Yeah, Gangnam Style. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I heard that one.
Yeah, that was
huge. You know what? I got one for you. This is people probably won't say this to you, and they probably didn't notice it. But like, if you don't watch Chinese soap operas, or you watch, Japanese dramas, you don't watch Korean dramas or soap operas, which I mean, that a lot of people now with Netflix. But before that, you
Mhm.
had like some kind of streaming channels, and you was watching all that. One thing you noticed though is, to me, I would notice all of them. There's funny situations in all of those, but the
Yeah.
Korean, they seem to be treated like the blacks are.
Like the what?
They seem to be like the blacks. Like they seem to be like the blacks of the population, like the way they treat it. But I noticed the
Yeah.
way everybody has
Yeah.
the type of respect for their parents and that, but the way they are, something about them remind me of kind of like some of the families I know.
There's a
Why
lot
is
of
that?
similarities I've noticed. Yeah. Who always had, especially when you look at like older, like the older generations,
Yeah,
older generation black people and older generation Korean people, they seem to
yeah,
have way more in common than not. It's one of the
they
things
do.
I noticed. Yeah. Who always had,
Yeah, interesting.
some,
It's fun. Some of the stuff is funny, man. It like to remind you of like your own family. Like, so I probably I see why you might have connected with some things, but it's the same here.
yeah,
I mean, yeah.
who always had, back when we were living in Korea, because, I had a lot of international friends there as well, because, it was just a job I was working. And I was like, one of the jokes we had was that Korean and black people eat the same food. Lots of pork, lots of fried chicken, lots of watermelon. That's what they eat in Korea, man. They love pork, they love fried chicken, they love watermelon.
Hey,
I don't, I don't know what it is.
hey, Donnie. Also, too, South Korea
It's
is
good.
making really good horror movies.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, they had the Train to
God.
Busan.
yep.
Yeah, the Train to Busan. The zombies were out of this
All of
world.
these
Yeah.
series, Happiness, the Hellbound. I mean, Sweet Home. I mean, it's everything they make. This
Yep.
shit is like that.
Yep. And what a
Yeah.
lot of people don't know is we do have the best fried chicken in the world. And there are people who have challenged me on this. Some of my friends from America, from the deep south, have flown over to visit me, and I would tell them, "Yo, we got the best fried chicken in the world." And they're like, "I don't believe you, Donny Cho." And I'm like, "Oh yeah? Let me take you to this place." They come with me to this place. These are people who've had like their grandmother's recipe for generations living in like deep Alabama. I take them to this one hole in the wall in Seoul, South Korea. We start eating it, and they're like, "Damn, this is the best fried chicken I ever had in my life." And I'm like, "See, I told you."
But
Where can I get
you
fried
too.
chicken here?
It's not the best actually. The way that batter is, the way the season is, when you taste it, the
Yeah,
same way it's bubbled up. I don't know, man. You'd have to see about that. This one is like United States famous for real. We have to see
Hey,
about that.
Donnie, what do you
I'm gonna
think
have to
about
take you. Go ahead.
what do you think about North Korea? I mean, do you think North Korea's going to step out of line and invade South Korea?
No, I don't think that's happening. Um, I've got a lot of thoughts on North Korea. I'm actually half North Korean. My dad was born in North Korea. My dad's side of the family actually escaped to the South when my dad was a baby. So yeah, if they hadn't done that, I'd be speaking all North Korean right now. No, North Korea is not going to attack. Their biggest threat is the nukes. But in terms of conventional military, nah, nah. We are seeing what their soldiers are capable of right now in Ukraine. They're not doing anything. Their tech, all their military equipment and technology is from like the 1960s and the 1950s. Believe me, they're not doing anything. They have no functional air force. Who
It
always
ain't
happening?
So
Donnie,
is
let me tell you about a little incident that I had over there. I was a 97 Bravo intelligence analyst,
Hmm.
and one day the counterintelligence agents called me into the office, and before I knew it, I was being interrogated. Come to find out, I was dating a girl from North Korea. I didn't know it, but I had a top secret SBI clearance, special background investigation, and I had no clue, but they wanted to know if I was divulging any secrets to this lady, and that, which I wasn't.
Hmm.
But it scared me to death. I was being harassed,
Yikes.
followed, everything. So yeah,
You couldn't tell with her accent?
No, I mean,
Um,
I wasn't paying
oh.
attention. Yeah.
So wait a minute, is it a different dialect or just a different accent, or
They're
is it
they're so isolated that well, yeah, their accent is different, but they're so isolated that like vocabulary. Okay, so you know how every language has loan words? For
explain?
example, like English has a lot of loan words, right? Like toilet, that's not an original English word. That's a French word that we just kind of jacked and now it's English, right?
Like
In the
garage.
Korean language, they have a lot of loan words where, okay, the Korean word for computer is computer,
Who right?
Always because they got it from the Americans. That's where they heard it from. So they just used the English word for computer as a Korean word for computer, right? North Koreans, when they speak Korean, they have very little of that. Who always had. So for the North Korean word for computer is kesangi. Kesan means calculate. Gi means machine. So their literal word for computer means calculating machine. Whereas South Koreans, they'll say literally just computer. Who always had.
Verb to
All right.
be.
Yeah.
What's the verb to be in Korean?
Ida.
Ida. So you said, I am, you are, she is, they are. How do you conjugate Ida?
It doesn't quite work that way because the word order is different. In the Korean language, it's subject, object, and verb. So instead of saying, okay, for example, instead of saying I went to the store, it's more like I to the store went.
That's why
So
I noticed in the like even in subtitles, they're just trying to follow it. I noticed they switched,
yeah.
but it is some pronouns though, right?
Who always had. They don't use pronouns in the same way. They have them.
Oh,
But a lot because of the way the sentence sometimes they'll speak sentences without using a noun. See, the reason why English uses pronouns more than other, I used to be a language teacher in Korea, so I can speak on
okay.
this a bit. English language kind of requires you to stick nouns in every sentence. That's kind of unique to like Western languages. Eastern languages not so much.
Okay.
So that's because like something like ida, like verbs, they kind of just stick them at the ends at the as an ending rather than its own word.
What about the like the verb to see? Verb
Poda,
and or say like to drink.
who always had ashita, yeah.
So let's say, how would you say I'm drinking?
Who always had. I wouldn't even say that. I would just conjugate the verb drinking. So I
Okay.
would be saying 마시고 있다, which means
Right.
drinking
Okay.
right now, which the person would understand means me.
Okay. Okay. That's even better actually. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
waste of time because what the same thing like saying French. If you say she said to me, Elle a dit au moi, but you could just say Elle me dit moi. Like you don't need but I noticed that when I see some of the subtitles or I'm trying to follow pronouns or anything like that, I noticed that it's mixed up at different times.
It's completely different word order, yeah.
Yeah. But that's
It's
cool
real
though.
hard to learn. Yeah.
Donnie, what year did you live in Itaewon?
So I was living in Korea from 2006 to 2015. I lived in Itaewon from, I would say, from 2000, who always had to 2009 to 2015, like in between.
Okay, I was there in 1981. I was just making sure you're not my son.
Oh, no, no. I was actually born in Canada. I was born in Canada. So as long as you weren't in Toronto.
Tu parles français là?
No, I mean, I moved out of Canada when I was like 4. I barely remember it, but
Okay. Okay. Well, I was going to ask you, Donnie and Phil, you might want to ask this. What do you guys think about the new quantum computer that Google shut down? Because if it goes too far, nobody's encryption, nothing's safe anymore. What do you guys think about this whole thing coming up?
I mean, I don't know much about it, but I do know that I mean, I haven't been looking into that so much. I do know that with a lot of this AI that's been coming out,
Yeah, yeah.
it's who always had. This is like a new frontier. I mean, this is like untouched ground. I have no idea what's going to happen. There's so many things that we're doing with AI that I didn't even realize that AI was potentially even capable of when we were first dreaming about it. I mean, remember back in the 80s when Terminator first came out? and you thought that was the extent of like what AI is capable of. You
Yeah.
could have imagined that what AI is actually doing now. I mean, Cyberdyne's mad basic if you think back on it. It's just, oh, it just wants to kill people. That's it. You know?
You can't even say the Jetsons no more. Jetsons is like old school now. They're like Jetsons. That shit they
Yeah.
been had what the Jetsons have. It's like all kind of crazy. But you know,
it's mad basic.
I think
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel.
No, Donnie's absolutely right. It's so new that we're not even. Most of us don't even have an idea of just what's capable of or what's going to be capable of. It is changing. It is creating a whole new playing field as far as I'm in IT and I work in IT, and the as far as cybersecurity goes, as far as like just stupid things about just having to verify your identity or your eligibility to work or doing things like that. We have classes, it seems, that are coming out almost every other day now, where they're always warning about not compromising, not falling for this scam or that scam, because the deepfake software is so realistic that now they don't just want you to verify things via like the old-fashioned way of just even calling somebody. They want face-to-face, and sometimes face-to-face they don't even mean through like a Skype. They want you to walk into somebody's office now. They literally do not trust a phone line anymore, because voices can be faked electronically, faces can be faked electronically, unless you're actually in front of a person. If it's something really big and it's going to cost millions of dollars, or potentially could cause millions of dollars in damage, they want face-to-face confirmation before anything happens anymore. It's gotten to that point, which in a way is crippling the speed at which business is moving in some situations. Where it used to move fast, some things are coming to a halt because we're almost going backwards to the old days where we have to do things the old-fashioned way. Okay, what the hell just happened with this?
Oh wow!
Speaking of that,
what's going on with my screen? But
speaking of that, we've just been hacked.
The AI's listening on us.
Donnie, have you ever seen Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
I have.
Okay, we have Leatherface.
Hello.
On the show tonight.
Hey.
And Leatherface is the one causing all this.
Yeah.
I'm not from no Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. Oh. Zandine, if you never met Leatherface, be scared. Be very, very scared.
I actually is scary right now.
I love it.
I've got go ahead.
No, Donnie, I was listening to you, man. Go ahead.
I've always had this weird thought. Going back to the whole topic of the paranormal, right? We've always heard stories about when you talk about like ghost investigations or these ghost encounter stories about ghosts being able to manipulate electronics. And recently, one of my friends was on a podcast talking about phone calls from the other side. We've all heard those stories, right? Someone passes away tragically. The loved one or someone they know might get a phone call from that phone number, right? And then it turns out it could be the spirit of that person manipulating the line from the other side. Now, the question I've had is, if something like that is possible, then would it be possible for a spirit or a ghost or whatever kind of entity to manipulate AI? Ghost manipulate an algorithm.
That's dependent on a ghost is what you think a ghost actually is. But when you're talking about quantum possibilities now, which is what we are talking about, for instance, if you have a not a binary situation, but a qubit situation where you have, all these different possibilities to where, say, when you take one picture, you're getting way more resolution. So a ghost, we had a guest on our show that pretty much debunked all the equipment that you and I have learned to see in all the shows and depend on.
Yeah.
Like they did like serious studies and they were like, all that stuff, like he really didn't think any of it worked. He was saying like the EMF meter, it's a different reason. Reading, saying that the apparitions, are very rare and he was talking about the ghost signature actually being from the actual people rather than dead people. But you bring up the important point of there are things that are beyond anything we know of because it is a quantum possibility. So in that case, I mean, anything is still possible. I mean, who knows? Those drones could have been coming from one of the dimensions when they're messing with this quantum chip, and they've already duplicated this reality like 2,000 times for real. Who knows what's going on? So I think
that's why only two things I go for. That's the EVPs, and if I get an anomaly in the photograph, all the other stuff to me is bullshit.
You don't go for that stuff?
No, I don't go for the EMF. I mean, it could be wiring and all this other crap. I don't believe all that. Yeah, and I mean, I let the investigators bring their equipment because I mean, it's entertaining. I have things that light up and all this other stuff. And the stick figures in your Connect and all that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
To me, it's all and you can look it up, and these scientists will explain to you why Connect, the stick figures, is bullshit. They'll explain it to you.
But Paul, your friend did agree. You guys talked about the mongoose, and there were some things that even these guys, there's things that are compelling to them as well. So that's the realm we're talking about that even they can't explain. Which Donnie, I agree with you. Like it's so the equipment. Sometimes it might even be empowered by you. Who knows?
Right.
Yeah, I like Donnie's idea though, or the possibilities anyway that Donnie brings up with
AI.
If something can be inhabited or haunted or possessed, imagine the possibilities of what could of what a ghost could do if it really did have the ability to inhabit a machine. I mean, what is that?
Or the internet.
Or the internet, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's like Ghost in the Machine or Lawnmower Man or that type of thing. Almost limitless possibilities, especially in today's day and age, because you can literally shut down countries with the internet.
What the FM guy, he did say that there were entities on the frequency. It wasn't just about transmitting radio frequencies. He did talk about other entities within, the radio waves. So I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't be in the ether of, the algorithms of the classical computer. And the information in a quantum computer will now be carried in atom clouds. So, who knows? I think anything's possible. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I don't know if you guys heard about this, Donnie. Tell me if you heard about this. There's this Japanese scientist, and I can't tell you what his name is, or I couldn't even pronounce his name anyway. Mm-hmm. But this Japanese scientist says that they're working on a contraption about so big, and when they open it up, it will produce a computer hologram. And you wear these special gloves, and you can actually type on it and use it just like a regular computer. And then you close it, and it's back to this compact little box. And and they'll actually be working on a computer made of light.
That would be so convenient. But you know that as soon as they develop that technology, first thing they're going to use it for porn. That's how it all happens, right? That's how you. What was that one quote that one guy said? Every new media, you'll know if it's successful or not because the porn industry. Yeah.
Yeah, just like the VHS. Well, isn't that kind of what doesn't the Oculus kind of do that kind of thing with the working with light or face? Doesn't the Oculus do that kind of thing where you're touching light, or is that just porn?
No, you can touch light. Mostly it's augmented reality. It's where you can see your surroundings, but you have menus, keyboards, options, and it's great for porn. But otherwise, it is a technology. I mean, it's not like a
porn and video
you can
games
see without the goggles yet. But, hey, I definitely use different interfaces because I do plug in my Oculus to my computer, and I do operate my computer from my Oculus.
Wow.
Phil, where's that voice coming from? Is that the voice of God?
That's the tree behind us. The forest is alive.
Show your face.
Oh, jeez.
Show your face, please, man.
So yeah, Paul. That's technology.
Oculus is definitely good for cyber groping Cardi B every night, so it works.
Cardi B, baby.
Hey,
Yeah,
Phil,
yeah.
let's go walk back there in that trail back there.
You want to go camping, Paul?
Yeah, let's go camping.
If Paul wants to go camping.
I like the setup actually.
I know, it's cool.
It looks like we're like students in a classroom, but the classroom's outside. Yeah, studying in nature. Right?
It looks like like fucking the park in San Francisco. I know. Hey, Paul, what you said about that bomb?
Donnie. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Hey, Donnie, when I was in Korea, also too, I was actually, well, in the service, I was also too doing my comic book stuff. I was in the comic book industry.
Okay.
I loved the anime and the manga that they had in Korea. Did you ever read any of those?
I never got into those, but they are huge over there. They still are, and I mean they're huge over here now.
Oh yeah.
They've pretty much blown the American comic book industry out of the water now. A lot more people are
Yeah.
into manga than they are into like Marvel or DC. It's kind of sad because I always favored more the Western style comics, but you even go to like a Barnes and Noble or something, the manga section is way bigger, just way bigger.
There's so many.
Some people nowadays are so much more into manga than they are like Western comic books.
But don't they have a different name for Korean called manhwa? Or like instead of it's because it's manga?
Yeah, no, manhwa is the Korean word for manga.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah, you're right. Ghost.
Hey, what horror movies do you like, Donnie, from Korea?
Ghost. Actually, I'd say the people who do the horror movies the best, in my opinion, are the Japanese.
Oh,
They know how to make some
but
scary
but the
movies.
Train to Busan was awesome.
Train to Busan was awesome.
Effects.
I think it's a little different with the Korean style. Koreans, they do have Korean horror, and some of it is quite gnarly. If you have ever watched The Wailing, Ghost,
No.
yeah, that one's
Yeah. Well, in 1981, when I was in Korea, all they were playing were Korean romance movies.
yeah, the melodramatic stuff. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was big in like the early stuff. Korean entertainment has definitely evolved since then, but it was definitely a lot more melodramatic. There's still elements of that everywhere. Even in Train to Busan, there was some like melodrama in there where like, the guy gets bit at the end, everyone's crying. Korean people love a good cry. They love a good cry. That's the difference between Koreans and Japanese people. Not as much melodrama in the Japanese stuff. So if you do Japanese horror, that shit's just straight scary.
Yeah,
There's no crying bit. There's no reflection. It's just balls to the wall, just scary. Korean horror movies will have scary stuff, but then there will always be that one scene where you like cry.
Have you seen Strange Circus?
No, I have not.
Japanese movie. I don't know if it's technically horror, but it's one of the most effed up movies I've ever seen in my life.
Them Japanese, man, I'm telling you, they love that disturbing stuff. It's weird like that. They love that disturbing stuff.
Man,
Yeah.
what do you think, Leatherface, about the horror and those genres?
Ghost?
Which genre was it?
Japanese horror or Korean horror.
Only one I think I watched anime wise I was Asian was Vampire Hunter D.
Oh, that's old school. That's very old school.
So I never really got into anime too much, but I mean, that was the only one I watched, to be honest. Oh, I'm sorry, and it's Fist of the North Star.
Leatherface, you met the real Leatherface.
Man, that was
that. Yeah, Fist of the North Star. That was cool. When he punched you, you exploded. It was great.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that
people
was original.
into
Yeah.
the
What'd you say, Polly?
I said, didn't you meet the real Leatherface?
Ghost.
I didn't get to meet him in person. I contacted him through his website, Gunnar Hansen, way early when I just became Leatherface, and became good friends with him.
You mean the original
Yeah,
actor from the original Leatherface?
Yeah. We
Oh, that's cool.
we actually sit down and wrote a couple Cloak and Dagger films too. But he was a great guy. I mean, I didn't know he was ill or nothing. And one morning I just got a call from an executioner that he died, and looked on TMZ, and there he was. But he was a good dude.
The story. That's a good story.
So wait, are you guys all like horror movie aficionados, like the Western horror movies? Are you guys all into those?
Oh, it's just that we're into the paranormal, so
Yeah.
horror just
Kind of runs hand in hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What you said about that box, Paul? I mean, what you said about the box and the
Yeah.
Well, I get in early 2000s. I used to work at this work hall, and people would come in to get jobs, whatever. You come in the morning, and there was this older guy that had been in the military, and my boss had told me to watch out for him. And I remember one day I got his tax code wrong, and I thought it was right. I swore that it was right. He said, "No, you better check it again." He said, "Look," and he had some kind of increment that the government gave him, so he got a little bit more. And so I was like, this guy's like this kind of interesting, this dude. So one day when I closed the shop to print the checks, he was telling me, well, I was talking to him. A commercial came on, showed aliens, and it showed like flying saucers and stuff. And I said, I said, what do you think they're trying to do, man? Desensitize us to this stuff? Like, I said, what do you think about this? And he looked at me and he says, what do I think? And he said, shit. He said, it's what I know, like that. And so I kind of like, and I know my boss, I guess they were like in the service together. So I said, what do you mean, what do I know? So he didn't say much. I started talking about some, whatever they were talking about in the day, what people, Art Bell or Coast to Coast was talking about. And he was like, hey, listen. So he walked up to the desk and he said, listen, if you did find something, he said, even if you got into the 6 o'clock news, he said, you wouldn't even be able to get on. He said, they'd be on your ass so fast. So I said, okay. So he went into his pocket. He said, hey, listen, let me show you something. And he threw this rock at what was like a stone or smooth, kind of silverish. And he said, you ever seen anything like that before? I said, well, I'm not a rock expert. Shit, I don't know. But so I tried to do a few things to it. And I said, no, I don't know what it is. I'm not. But he said, I know you have it because it's not from here. And so I said, oh, okay. And I'm in a workout. We in San Francisco downtown. And he's like, it's not from here. I'm like, okay. So turned out he was working at he was working at a site. He was an MP where they had a hole, he said, that was deep, 27 feet deep, and they were chronologing parts of this crashed ship. And he said this was a stone from a thing called pressure tone. And he said that whoever drove this thing had 3 fingers. And he said he would hear the engineer, as they were putting the stuff in the hole, talk about it. And this dude wasn't like, he wasn't any kind of like scientist or anything, He was just like he was like Fred Sanford. That's what he reminded me of. But anyway, he said that one time, he said that if you have something or stuff like that, he said you can't be trying to broadcast. He said because they would get to you. And I said, oh, and he said, well, one time in his house in Florida, he said he believed that they were testing him because they asked him about some objects, and his wife answered the door. She said that they were really rude, came in, and they had some cash in a briefcase. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, excuse me for a second. He went into the room and came back with a gun. He said, I don't know who the F you guys are, but you need to get the hell out of my living room. So they were like, is that your answer? And he said, yeah. And he said he never heard nothing after that. But I said, well, what the hell did you have? He talked about a box. Like what you said, he said this box, you take the top off of it, and out comes like this, he said almost like a utility blanket, but it's a little harder than that. And he said he never could get it back in most times. He said he kept trying to, he said it just didn't, he said he couldn't figure out what came out. And he said he put this top on it, and he said it went in by itself, and like it made a perfect square, you know. And this is like some kind of so he talked about this in the early 2000s, and he also said that those rocks were held up by some looked like pencils that had crystals that light would shine through them. And he said the fingers went. I mean, hey, look, you know, probably was lying, but it's a great story, you know.
Yeah. Hey, I got to tell you guys really fast. You want to hear a true story, and it's actually funny.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
Okay. When I got out of the service in 1986, I needed a job. So I went to Manpower. Do you guys know what Manpower is?
No.
It's temporary agency.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, they said, Paul, they said, you got a lot of experience, blah, blah, blah. You were with military intelligence, all this other stuff. They said
Isn't that the gay porn
this
cast?
one agency needs a computer programmer. Well, to me, I used a computer, okay, and you know, to type on and everything else, and I thought that was a computer programmer. And I said, I'm a computer programmer. And so they sent me over to that agency, and this guy goes up to me and he's leaning into my cubicle and he goes, so you're the one who's going to save the company. And I looked at him and I said, yeah. I said, I type about 86 words a minute.
Hmm.
And he looked at me real strange. He goes, what? And I said, yeah, I type 86 words per minute. And he goes, and you're the new computer programmer. I said, yeah. And so I was getting this big check. And then finally the supervisor came walking in my cubicle and she goes, you're not a computer programmer at all. I go, huh? I said, I used a computer in the Army. They go, yeah, but did you program the computer? I go, I think I did. I mean, I type 86 words per minute. She goes, oh my gosh. She goes, you're not a computer programmer. I said, well, I didn't understand what a computer programmer was. And she goes, well, I'll tell you what. I need this typed out. When you get typed out, you're finished. You're out of here. I go, okay, okay. So all of a sudden, my big check that I was getting for a computer program went down to clerk level, and I was hardly getting anything. So that was my story. I'm not a computer programmer.
So they thought you were like this computer genius that was going to save the company.
Yeah.
No, you know who you know what that reminds me of? Remember Superman 3, Richard Pryor's character? The guy who, like never touched the computer, and as soon as he touches the computer, he does all this magical stuff. He programs everything. And they're like, how'd you figure that out, Richard Pryor? He's like, I don't know. I guess I'm just a computer programming genius. Who knew?
And suddenly figures out how to embezzle millions of dollars from the company by taking 1 cent while reaching.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, as a kid, I'm watching this. I'm like, is it that easy to learn computers?
And Manpower was so mad at me that my next job I was a janitor.
Oh man. I mean, it was their fault. It wasn't yours.
Yeah, I didn't know.
True.
Oh yeah.
Hey, let me ask you guys. Actually, I'm kind of curious about something. Okay, so because we're talking about paranormal stuff with regards to like the paranormal and Fortean topics. Do you guys, typically people tend to lean a certain way, right? Like some people are more into the ghost stuff. Some people are more into like the cryptid, Bigfoot stuff. Some people are more into like the UFOs, extraterrestrials. Where do you guys all lean? Ghost?
Zandine, UFOs. Phil?
UFO.
Same to me, actually. I have a lot of, it's just at the time, sometimes I have more of that than most people have. But to me, they're all interrelated. But I'll let Paul go from there.
Okay, okay. And Phil, he's an armchair paranormal investigator. So he'll get on Google Earth and find you some ghosts. And as for me, I like everything. I like cryptids. I like ghosts, demons, Bigfoot, UFOs, UAPs, fucking drones. Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Dang. Hey,
I'm mostly UFO and Bigfoot.
UFO and Bigfoot. Yeah.
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 As a kid, I was obsessed with biblical stuff, Book of Revelations kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Got really heavy into that, and then I lived in. We moved a lot, so lived in a few haunted houses. So kind of heavy into that. But to be honest with you, I like a good story. So anything, you know, from Bigfoot to ghosts or UFOs,
And
drones.
Phil likes a good serial killer.
Feel like
Yeah,
true crime.
Yeah, and I put a book out on that. I had a podcast about that too. But to be honest with you, doing that every single week got really dark. It starts to affect
Gets
you.
depressing. Yeah.
It's really depressing, and you start to look at the world in a really dark way if that's all you're reading every single day.
So one of my buddies, Tex, Paul, I'm sure you know him. He's got a big. It's mostly a cryptid Bigfoot show, but then he also has like a side show, like a side kind of a spin-off, I guess you would call it. He does like true crime stuff where he talks about different serial killers. And I'm like, yo, man, don't that's cool and all if that's what you're into, but you gotta balance it out. If you're gonna do a show where you talk about serial killers and stuff, then you should do an opposite show where you showcase like an opposite case, like a very heroic person or someone who's admirable. And his show is called Infamous Minds, every Sundays. I'm like, hey man, maybe like every Wednesday or something, you should do the opposite show called Sweetie Pies. And then every episode you'll do like a different, like fantastic, terrific, awesome human interest story of like an inspirational person to balance out the, you need a little light with the dark,
I bet she's doing a show on Luigi.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Donnie and other friends, I want to ask you guys a question, especially a leather. What do you think are the top 3 reasons that people are apprehensive about UFOs and extraterrestrial life?
Ghost.
Probably from watching too much TV, so they expect everything to be TV-like. They expect flying saucers. They expect little green men. I think it's just expectation is probably the worst nightmare of UFO believers.
I think it's actually rare that you'll find a person who's just like, there's no other life in the universe. We're the only one. I'm pretty sure that most people are of the mind that they're just like, yeah, there's going to be something out there in the universe. Most people would generally agree. I mean, I'm sure there are going to be those outliers. But I think the main reason why people don't want to associate so heavily with these topics, they don't want to be made a fool of.
They're already here. They don't want to look at Elon Musk and Barbara Streisand. I'm sure they're aliens.
Elon Musk and Barbara Streisand. Man, how do you deal with people thinking everything is a demon? I mean, can it possibly be extraterrestrial life or interdimensional life? Why does everything have to be a demon or a monster? What do you guys think about that? I think it's demons.
Well, that's mostly because people refer back to the Bible and say there's no lies. Yeah, exactly. Saying that any kind of alien coming down or fallen angel.
It's like if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Ghost, right?
I mean, they have this obelisk on the dark side of the moon. It's almost a mile high. Why isn't there any good HD pictures of this obelisk? I mean, it exists. It's there. It casts a shadow. Everything else. And what is NASA hiding from us? They won't take their spaceship or whatever, their satellite, whatever, to take a good photo of this obelisk. It's frustrating.
I was on the moon.
Does NASA acknowledge its existence?
What's that, Phil?
Does NASA acknowledge its existence, or does NASA?
No, they're trying to say it's a trick of shadow, and they're trying to say it's shadow and light.
Also, that's why I say government spy satellites can zoom on down to your cell phone and see who you're sending nudes to, but they can't get a clear picture of part of the damn moon.
All right, how about this? You know how they have all those rovers on Mars, right?
Yeah.
Like they had those rovers that were there for a good while, like years, just roving around Mars, it's like several of them, right? Doing all sorts of stuff, following all sorts. Why don't we have drones up on the moon and rovers? We should be having like so many drones. We're obviously capable of it.
We probably do.
Goes.
I know we have 11 Hubble telescopes pointed at us. People only know about the one, but we've got
We should
11.
have a live camera feed on the moon right now. We should be able to just turn the channel and see like a live feed from the moon, from a camera planted on the moon. If we could do that on Mars, why can't we do that on the moon?
You're damn right. Why hasn't China done that? Instead of concentrating on a manned mission to the moon, why not focus on an unmanned mission to the moon with a rover or a drone like these things?
Right.
That's a great idea. Why if China wants to, that makes a hell of a lot more sense than doing a manned mission.
You know, those rovers were just they were lasted longer than even the NASA scientists expected it.
Yeah.
They were expecting that thing to last like 2 years. It lasted like 5 years. And they were just having it go around. And
with the amount of solar in our battery technology now, we can throw something up there that can last a good 10 years or better. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Why don't we throw something up there just to explore it more?
Yeah, like a rover, a drone. We don't even have one drone up there. It's right there.
I think the drone's the better idea. Just so you can do a low orbit around it and map the whole thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So what about the idea of the Earth being, or not the Earth, but the moon being hollow and it like ringing? Have you? I'm sure everybody's
heard that. Yeah, we've all heard that.
It's been towed to its location.
Yeah. And what's inside the moon? Why is the moon able to give a complete eclipse of the sun at the distance as it is? I mean, was it placed there to cause a blackout where they can actually eclipse the whole sun? I mean, that's amazing. And if it's ringing like a bell, yeah, definitely it's hollow. So is there extraterrestrials inside the moon watching Earth?
Yeah. So the idea is that the diameter of the moon is if you multiply that 100 by 108, that's the diameter of the sun. If you take the distance of the Earth to the moon and multiply it by 108, that's the distance from the Earth to the sun.
Yeah, it's too perfect.
Why do those numbers match up so well like that?
So perfect.
Yeah, so well.
Is that proof of some type of divine existence then? I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I've also heard that because of the moon, I mean, obviously they said the Earth wouldn't exist and life wouldn't exist on Earth without the moon. You know, it creates the tides, it creates winds, it creates our gravity, right? So without that, we wouldn't have life. But I've also heard it has something to do with the fact that we don't get pelted with asteroids. On the level that a lot of the other planets do. So in a way, it gives us life, but it also protects us. So, I mean, if you want to talk about a perfect circumstance or a perfect alignment of planetary objects in order to create the perfect, beautiful blue marble out here in space for life to exist, I don't know. I'm not like I said, I'm not a religious person, but it almost seems like this is proof of something bigger than ourselves.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence, right? The fact that those numbers match up so well, it doesn't feel like it to me.
So would it be another? Is it possibly that it's God, or is it possibly that it's like some other civilization that the planet seeding people from far away that could have pushed something into alignment or even actually built the stars or the solar systems and designed it this way.
Right.
Ancient India Sanskrit tells you that at one time there was a civilization on Earth and there was no moon, and the moon was actually placed in that position.
Heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard that the Dogons mentioned apparently in their mythologies, there was a time when in the past when there was no moon.
Yeah, and the Dogon tribe,
one day it showed up.
Yeah, and the Dogon tribe, they knew about Sirius B, and Sirius B,
Right.
you can't see it with the naked eye, but
Right.
yet they still knew about it.
Right.
That's because Alpha came and told him about it. The Sirius B, he came and told him the 4 degrees of knowledge. That's what happened to the Dogon.
Mm.
He'll tell you. Yeah.
Now, this is a tribe that was still using stone tools when so it's pretty incredible to think that
Yeah.
they would have that knowledge.
Yeah. This little light of mine that shines, they believe that God was man and woman, and that they believe to live with no blemish, to try to live like him. But as I said, they have 4 degrees of knowledge. The first one was knowledge you got in front of you, knowledge you got from the side of you, and knowledge you got from behind you. And then the assimilation of all that to do it altruistically, not play by the numbers, would be your 4th degree of knowledge. So they always aspired to be like this guy Amma, who was man and a woman, and he had a little the light a source, which they would say, this little light of mine, I'm let it shine. So they looked at everything on a macrocosm level, just like micro. But next to them was the Yoruba, who believed in the water god. So that's different. So it's a tribe right next to him.
Well, then you want to start to get into monotheism versus polytheism. But I mean, if you want to believe in anything, if just in nature, you're going to have the male and the female
Right.
in order to create life. So why wouldn't God or a female God? Why wouldn't it all be one? You require both for life to exist. So you can't have one without the other. It makes perfect. It's only when you get into the Catholicism where you want to completely like dominate or exclude or hardcore Islam, where we have to cover up and let's not show one sex versus the other. Yeah, I don't know.
My personal theory is that celestial objects like planets and stars, I believe that they're actually living things or living conscious beings. But the thing is, we're so stuck in our narrow point of view on what constitutes actual life that we don't bother to think of the sun as an actual living being. Because we're so stuck on life being like it's got to have cells and bones and skin and DNA and mitochondria or whatever. But we never stop to think, like, if you look at the life cycle of a sun or a star, and the internal processes, it's got an actual life cycle. It goes through stages. It's born, it dies, it reproduces, its DNA gets spread out for other stars to take on. Who's to say, like, the Earth itself is not a living being? The sun is not a living being, Maybe those are the things that we
living being.
Yeah.
But there's proof of that. If you believe in the Bible, I mean, for those who do believe in the Bible or somewhat, there is an apocrypha in Enoch. The earth itself was spoken as an entity itself, because it was tired of the giants eating each other, eating the reptiles, eating the people, all the things it was doing. So Uriel Gabriel came to God and said, "Hey, the earth itself is reproving these giants, these children, these Nephilim, because they're doing so much. Can you please help us?" So the people were already crying at his gates, but the earth itself was crying out. And that's when God said, "Okay, I already have something. I have the flood was coming to reset."
Right.
But as Bible stories go, just to let you know, and I'm sure in other mythology, they have referred to the earth as a living being for a fact. So you're correct, I believe.
I'm wondering if, like planets, for example, some planets have like their magnetic field, some don't, right? Earth does. That's why we have our atmosphere the way it is. Mars doesn't, right? So, because, the magnetic field is generated from the core of a planet, like rotating, right? Because, cores are usually metallic. When they rotate, they generate the magnetic field. That's why we have a magnetic field. Mars does not. So, does that mean that Mars is actually a dead planet? Its heart has stopped beating. That's why there's no magnetic field. Our magnetic field is very robust because the core of the planet is turning, it's moving, and maybe that's kind of like the heartbeat of the planet.
I think that's I think it's a really good point.
It is absolutely something definitely to think. Do we know what the core of Mars is made of?
I think they've been lying to us about what's actually going on out there. So those rules, if they apply, that would be a good point. But I think it's probably once you get out there, because, for instance, if you look at Robert O'Dean, who was a military sergeant for 23 years, Then he also worked with Robert Virgin from NASA. They talked about, as I said, the rings of Saturn. They had these photos and
Yeah.
the negatives where they saw this machine 2,000 miles long, 400 miles wide. It's the size, so they don't know if it was mining the ring or if it was making the ring, but we sure know it didn't come from us. And they had
Right.
supposed photos of Apollo 13 taking pictures of the moon with ships 5 miles long, 2 miles long, bigger than the moon. So obviously, and they had one where a ship was taking a picture of them. It was like a mothership negative, and they said you can be sure they're probably taking a picture of you as well.
Yeah.
So I think that it's much different once we probably get out there.
I think so. Man, there's I always say if you're into like UFO or alien lore, or if you're into study, it I think it's really good to just study up on space stuff. I watch a lot of space documentaries. This is how I know all these random facts, but I think it really helps because, it jogs the imagination when you start speculating on the nature of a lot of this phenomena, and then you start speculating on the nature of on the mysteries of the solar system. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys follow exoplanets? Have you been following like all
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
discoveries they've been
yeah, yeah.
making? Right? You notice like all of the different exoplanets we've been finding. We've been finding thousands now since like the mid 90s. And the weird thing is, of all of the different exoplanets and solar systems that we've seen, none of them look anything close like ours. None of them. And we found thousands of them.
Yeah, but none of them. You're right.
Yeah.
Like
It
the
is.
different solar systems.
You know what? Also, too, what we were talking about earlier is how the sun could be a living thing and Earth could be a living thing, Gaia.
Right.
But also, too, when I was a firefighter with the California Division of Forestry in 1977, a lot of firefighters believed that fire was a living thing because the way it grew,
Mhm.
it reproduces. I
Mhm.
mean, you can have a large fire over here, then all of a sudden you have a spot fire, a little baby fire, and it grows up to be a big fire. You have the movement of the fire, which sometimes it seems like intelligent movement. Um, it eats fuel, so it has to eat, and it has to
Mhm.
breathe oxygen. It could actually be a living thing.
Right.
It is. I think Donnie touched on it earlier about the life cycle of stars, though, and all of us have been to a planetarium, I'm sure, at least at one point in our lives, and heard about that the white dwarfs, going all the way to being a red giant, and then
Yeah.
eventually a black hole. So we all know about the life cycle of a star, but I don't think any of us know the life cycle of a planet or whether that's actually been really studied. Um,
Right.
or could it be studied, or whether that it's so closely related to the life cycle of stars that once that thing goes supernova and then into a black hole, it
Yeah.
takes everything along with it, which is the terrifying part about the trip to the planetarium, that I'm sure every kid remembers.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, it is fascinating. It's cool, and I really have dug this part of the podcast tonight. So I want to thank everybody for that. That's been really cool.
Yeah.
Donny Cho, thank you so much for being on the show. How can people reach you? Do you have a website? What's going on?
I have a YouTube channel. It is called Donny Cho Says Stuff. It's on Saturdays, 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So sometimes I'm live, sometimes I'm pre-recorded. It really depends on the schedule of my guests. Um, I do have to warn, there's a lot of profanity, so it's not for the faint of heart.
Oh, fuck.
Sometimes,
Why did you give us some of that? Before you go, man, hold up. They're closing out the show, but listen, I want to know what's your most compelling paranormal experience, whether it be UFO or ghost, because we didn't ask you that, man. Can you just tell us that real quick?
um, well, my paranormal stories are kind of long, but I did fart on a shadow person once for reals. It was at a very haunted house. This thing did try to choke my friend. It was a spot that it was like known. It was the spirit of a guy who like murdered a woman at a speakeasy back in the 1920s. I knew the exact spot. I had eaten a gas station hot dog on the drive there, and this guy tried to choke my friend. He murdered a woman in life. So I went to that spark. I let it rip, and I said, "That's what you deserve."
This is awesome. Awesome. That's great.
Oh man.
Yeah, I had to give the real quick rundown. So
That's all right, man. We're
yeah,
gonna have sure.
Yeah, I've got more. Yeah, I could tell more. I could go into more detail, but next time, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, please. I'm definitely
Yeah,
gonna check the show, and I'm gonna check out the what's the one in the hood show that you were talking
Ghosts
about earlier?
in the Hood.
Ghosts in the Hood. I gotta check that one out too.
Leather. Hey, can we get your UFO story, man? Cause you got a UFO story, man, like the a compelling one for you, right quick.
Oh yeah. Um.
I know you got one.
Awesome. Yeah, but I got a bunch. I'll have to type through and get them.
Okay.
I'm at my hospital bed on some.
Oh,
I'm waiting for now.
oh, shit, man. Honored, really honored to have you. Thank you, man.
yeah, Leatherface,
Yeah,
get
come on.
better. Get
Yeah,
better.
get better, man.
I'll try, man.
And well, honored to have you, man. Shit.
I'll tell you guys a Leatherface story. Leatherface, he did this video and he went to the Bohemian Grove. And so you see him driving all over to the Bohemian Grove. They're talking about it. You're all excited. And they get up there, and then all of a sudden they're running back. They're heading back home. They're scared to death. It was like, what the hell?
Yeah, we went in the main entrance and we got AK-47s pulled on us. Yeah, we left.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's a good reason to run.
So it wasn't like Moloch the Owl coming to give us the ET in the butt. They actually pulled guns on us.
It wasn't even like service pistols. It was straight up AKs. That's when you know it's time to run. Yeah.
Turn the fuck around. All right, we out of here. Yeah.
And they didn't have to ask you twice.
No, just one time we left.
Leatherface,
nice
Leatherface wanted to see a ghost so bad he broke a window.
That was an accident. Good time.
Good times.
Hear me.
See you guys soon.
All right.
Hello, thank you, man.
All right, Leatherface.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Donnie. Appreciate it. It was great talking to you tonight.
Let's do it again, man.
Thank you, Donnie.
Yeah, thank
we'll
you
do
for
it
having me.
again.
All right,
check
cool.
out Paranormal Soul Brother, man. Get you another laugh, man.
I will. Thanks.
All right, everybody. Have a great night.
Go out.
Have a good night.
I'm gonna check you out. I'm gonna check you out. I'm gonna be a listener. And me and my son will check.